Hey everyone, it's Hashim here, and I'm reviewing this new film sent to me by Popho camera called Luminar 100, which is essentially re-rolled Kodak Aerocolor IV. So I loaded a roll in my EOS 500 and was heading out to the beach with Sarah, where I got my first shots on this roll on a sunny day. The film shows fine grain, excellent detail, and nice colors with a warm look. You'll especially notice this in the highlights, which can turn a little bit pink. This might mean you'll want to be careful when shooting portraits or skin tones, especially in the sun and even more so in sunset light, for example. Dynamic range is quite good, and in my eyes a noticeable step up from consumer films from Kodak like Color Plus 200. And there's definitely more saturation than that, or perhaps a film like Pro Image 100, and I quite liked the look of Luminar 100 for shots of nature. After that we grabbed some takeaway and headed to a different spot, where I got my last shot for that day of the sun setting over the horizon. But I did head out on a different day to continue shooting the roll while I was meeting up with some photographers from the Pushing Film Discord server. And this was a cloudy day in comparison, and what I found is that indoor scenes or under cloudy light, the film still retains that warm look with the magenta pinkish highlights. I had the film developed and scanned by Halide Supply here in Melbourne, and what they used to scan it was a Frontier SP500. And what I know is that with this particular film stock Aerocolor IV, a lot of consumer lab scanners don't handle that red cast too well because of the difference in the film base. But I still had the film scanned on a SP500 without too much correction applied, because you can go ahead and remove some of that red by adding cyan, for example. But I just had Halide scan it as is without too much correction, so that I can give you the best representation of what you might expect if you shoot this film and just take it to a consumer lab scanner. Now, of course, you can scan it yourself at home and tweak the results, get rid of a bit of that red cast if you like. But again, I just wanted to give an overall average representation of what you might expect. And for that reason, I didn't edit these scans. These are just straight scans as I got them from Halide. Luminar 100 retails at 15 Canadian dollars a roll, and it's a standard C41 process. I also think it's great that they openly state what the actual film stock is, rather than be vague about it or hide it, because I personally just like to know if possible, so I can have a comparison point when shooting other films. My rolls came as reusable plastic cassettes, which I quite like because I do like bulk loading film, and that way I can reuse these. This means you'll need to set the ISO manually if possible, but a DX code might be added with future batches of the film. Back in the city, I tried a couple of shots with the built-in flash on the EOS 500 of these skaters, and they turned out quite well. Then I finished that first roll and loaded up another one. Now I took some portraits here, and as mentioned before, you'll want to be careful with skin tones from having them turn too pink. I found that the film has an interesting look to the warm tones, which I'll talk more about soon when we look at the color charts. And with darker skin, I found that there was more of a color shift with skin tones, but I think you'll just want to be careful with it overall, especially when overexposing. But in some situations, the unique reds can work quite well. So to examine this further, let's look at some color charts and exposure tests. As you can see, compared to the digital frame, the reds do pop and take on this painterly look, with less color separation between the different subtleties of red. It's like they all blend into one and bleed into each other. In terms of exposure, it handles underexposure surprisingly well, but you'll start to notice a green color shift in the shadows the more you underexpose, and a definite loss of shadow detail when you're underexposing by 2 stops. But the midtones and highlights still look okay, however, and you start to lose saturation here when you underexpose by 2, especially in those bleedingly saturated reds, which start to look a little bit more normal here. As expected, it holds up to overexposure quite well, like most color negative films, but I noticed a bit more saturation and color shifting with each stop over. So overall, I think shooting this film at box speed works well, but it is very forgiving if you under or overexpose. So what are your thoughts on this film? Will you shoot it, or have you already? Have you shot some other variant of Kodak Aerocolor IV? We'll talk more about what other films could be this soon, but I quite liked the poppy look of this film with some shots in my trials. It's super detailed and fine-grained, and it has those unique reds and pleasing warm tones in most scenes. Now for the last section of the video, I know some of you are probably wondering what else is using this same Kodak Aerocolor IV stock. Well, of course I can't say with 100% certainty, but I think it's the same as at least some of the Silbera films. Having shot those before, my results look very similar from these rolls to my rolls of Silbera Color 100, and even the 160 to be honest. So it makes me wonder if Silbera 160, 50 and 100 were all using the same stock. And I'm also pretty sure this is the same as the new Santa Color 100, and even the Photo Warehouse or ultra fine variations of Aerocolor IV. because as far as I know, it's readily available stock that you can get from Kodak in bulk, and all these brands seem to give the same recommendation of loading it in low light because of that thin base. And when I looked at the actual developed film between Silbera and this, it looked almost the same. But my overall thoughts are that it's just great to have more color films on the market. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it, especially when you can get something like this for a decent price. It's become harder and harder to get color film stocks out there. And another good thing is that this is spreading some of the profits over from Kodak to the smaller businesses that are going to the effort of re-rolling and packaging this film. So whether it's Popho Camera or other manufacturers, I think it's great to just have more of these films out there, whether they're just re-spooled films or not. And the good thing is Kodak Aerocolor IV is a stock that many of us haven't shot before, so it gives you the chance to try something new. And overall, I quite like the results. I don't know if it would take over my favorite film, Ektar 100, or my use of something like ProImage 100, but I definitely would shoot it again. So anyway, what do you think? Have you shot it? Are you going to shoot it? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed the review, and I'll see you on the next episode of Pushing Film.